Yes, I'm going to do it. So our next speaker is Dr. Christina Janoula. She is a postdoctoral research at the University of Toronto, working with Professor Gennady Pekhimenko and the Ecosystem Research Group. She is also working with the Safari Research Group, which is led by Professor Onur Mutlu. Christina received her PhD in October 2022 from the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the National Technical University of Athens, advised by Professor Georgios Goumas, Professor Nektarios Kotsidis, and Professor Onur Mutlu. Her research interests lie in the intersection of computer architecture, computer systems, and high-performance computing. Specifically, her research focuses on the hardware-software co-design of emerging applications, including graph processing, pointer chasing data structures, machine learning workloads, and sparse linear algebra, with modern computing paradigms such as large-scale multi-core systems, disaggregated memory systems, and near data processing architectures. She has several publications and awards for her research on these topics. Thank you very much, Christina.
We don't see your slide, Christina, on Zoom, and live stream is not there.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so you can share now, Christina.
Okay, great. So in this work, we will say we provide two key contributions.
Panel as well.
Let me see.
You go to the rightmost. High-floating meeting controls. This is something Zoom automatically should do, but
This one.
no.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so in this work, we provide two key contributions. First, we designed the first open source sparse matrix vector multiplication library, which is a software package for real core processing memory systems, and it is open source, available on GitHub. And also, we provide a very comprehensive characterization analysis of the sparse matrix vector multiplication kernel on the first commercially available processing memory architecture. So let's start with the motivation of this work. Sparse matrix vector multiplication, or SPMV, is a very fundamental linear algebra kernel and lies at the heart of many important applications from the scientific computing, machine learning, and graph processing and graph analytics domains. In commodity systems like CPUs and GPUs, it has been repeatedly reported to achieve only a small fraction of the available peak performance of the system, and is primarily bottlenecked by the memory bandwidth of the system, the available memory bandwidth of the system. At the same time, several manufacturers have already started to commercialize processing memory architectures, processing memory systems, or PIM systems. A PIM system consists of multiple PIM-enabled memory modules that are connected to a host CPU via common channel-based connections, and typically it also has the common DRAM memory modules. Okay. Yeah, and so each PIM-enabled memory module supports several processing memory cores, and each PIM core is located close to a DRAM bank. Okay, so each PIM core is located very close to a DRAM bank, so it can only access the data that are placed and they are located to the local DRAM bank. As a result, these real PIM systems can provide high levels of execution parallelism, low memory access latency cost, and very large aggregate memory bandwidth because each PIM core has a local available memory bandwidth for the local DRAM bank. So in total, we have very large aggregate memory bandwidth in the system. And a few near bank processing memory architectures are Samsung's PMDRAM, SK Hynix AM, and the UPMEM PIM system. In this work, we make two key contributions. We design SPARSP, which is an open source library to efficiently execute the SPMV problem in a current and future real-world PIM architectures. It includes 25 SPMV kernels, a wide variety of compressed matrix storage formats, data types, data partition techniques, and various load balancing and synchronization schemes. And with this approach, we can cover a very wide variety of real-world applications. And second, we conduct a comprehensive study of the popular SPMV kernel on the first commercially available real PIM system, the UpMem system. We have experimented with 26 sparse matrices with diverse access patterns, sparsity patterns, and our analysis provides many recommendations for software system and hardware designers. So let's first take a look on the SPMV kernels that we support in the SPARSP library. The end-to-end SPMV execution on a PIM system can be broken down in 4 steps. First, the time to load the input vector from the main memory to the PIM-enabled memory modules. Second, the time to execute the SPMV kernel, the computation of the SPMV kernel using the processing memory cores. Third, the time to retrieve results, partial results from the PIM-enabled memory modules back to the host CPU. And finally, the time to merge the partial results in order to assemble the final output vector using the host CPU cores in the host part. So in our analysis, we also consider the time to load the input vector to the PIM-enabled memory modules. However, future systems might have the PIM-enabled memory modules to be the main memory of the system, so this step can be omitted in the future. And our kernels also applied to a new architecture that does not need to have this load step in the execution pipeline, the execution path. To parallelize the SPMV kernel, we support two types of data partition techniques, and one departition technique and a two departition technique. In the first technique, the one departitioning, the matrix is horizontally partitioned across the PIM cores, and the whole input vector is copied at each DRAM bank of all the PIM cores, at each bank of the PIM-enabled memory modules. And with this approach, the whole computation is performed only using the processing memory cores, because the PIM cores directly produce the final elements for the output vector. So we directly get the final output vector. And second, we have also a two departition technique, where the matrix is partitioned in 2D tiles. The number of tiles is equal to the number of processing memory cores used. In the 2D partition technique, the subset of the elements of the input vector is replicated at the DRAM banks of the PIM-enabled memory modules. However, the PIM cores produce partial results for the output vector. They do not produce the final elements for the output vector, and these partial results need to be, we need to transfer them back to the host CPU and merge the partial results in order to assemble the final output vector on the host CPU part. So with this technique, we aim to trade off the computation with the data transfer cost, because we have a lower data transfer cost for the input and the output vector. However, we have more computation because the PIM cores produce partial results, so we need also to do some calculation and some computations on the host CPU with the host CPU cores. In the one departition technique, we provide various load balancing schemes across multiple PIM cores for the 4 most widely used compressed matrix storage format, for the CSR, Q, BCSR, and BQ formats. For the CSR and the Q formats, we can also load balance the number of non-zero elements across the PIM cores. In the CSR format, we can load balance the number of non-zero elements at a raw granularity, because the matrix is stored at a raw granularity. So the load balancing and the partition across the PIM cores needs to be performed in the raw granularity. However, in the Q format, the matrix is compressed, it is stored in a non-zero element granularity. So this means that the partitioning and the splitting is performed at a non-zero granularity, and one row can be split across 2 different PIM cores. And similarly for the BCSR format, the BCSR format is stored in block row granularity. So we do the splitting and the partitioning at the block row granularity. However, the BQ format is partitioned in block granularity, so we can split blocks and block rows across multiple PIM cores. In the 2D partitioning technique, we have two different schemes. We have experimented we support two different schemes and for three different schemes, and for all these schemes we support all the four compressed matrix formats that we saw before, including the CSR, the Q, BCSR, and BQ formats. In the equally sized scheme, the 2D tiles that we create in the 2D partitioning are created in order to have the same height and width. In this way, the subset of the elements for the input and the output vector have the same sizes across all PIM cores. So across all PIM cores, we transfer the same data, the same amount of data for the input vector and for the output vector as well. However, because we create static partitions on a sparse matrix, this matrix typically has like very high sparsity. The non-zero elements across the PIM cores have very high variability, so we have very high computation and non-zero element imbalance across the PIM cores. Second, we have the equally wide scheme. In this scheme, the 2D tiles are created to have the same width and variable height. For each vertical partition of the matrix, we load balance the number of non-zero elements across the PIM cores of the same vertical partition. With this scheme, the subset of the elements for the input vectors have the same sizes across all PIM cores. However, the subset for the elements for the output vector have variable size across PIM cores because each PIM core targets a different a different number of for the elements of the output vector. And with this approach, we have a very high non-zero element balance and computation balance across the PIM cores of the same vertical partition. And we have different balance across the vertical partitions. In the last scheme, we call it variable size tiles, and we have both variable width and variable height in the 2D tiles. So the idea is that we first create vertical partitions of the matrix. Across the vertical partitions, we have the same number of non-zero elements. And then for the same vertical partition, we load balance the number of non-zero elements across the PIM cores of the same vertical partition. In this scheme, we have variable sizes for the subset of the elements for both the input and the output vectors that we transfer both from the host to the PIM-enabled memory modules and for the output vectors that we need to transfer back to the host CPU. However, with this approach, we have very high non-zero element balance, non-zero computation balance across all the PIM cores of the system. And we have also, in our PIM architecture, we support multi-thread PIM cores. This means that we have multiple hardware threads for each PIM core. So we have experimented we support data partitioning approaches across multiple cores of multiple threads of the same PIM core. So after we do the partitioning across the PIM cores, we provide load balancing partitioning across the multiple threads of each PIM core. Again, these load balancing schemes depend on the format. If we have a CSR format, the load balancing is limited to be performed at a raw granularity. If we have a Q format, the load balancing is limited to is performed at a non-zero element granularity. And similarly, for the 2D partitioning, again, after we do the splitting for the PIM cores in 2D tiles, for each 2D tile, we do the load balancing across the threads across the multiple threads of the same PIM core. And given that these multiple threads have like this, they have a shared memory, all these multiple threads of each PIM core access the same local DRAM bank of the core. In some formats, we need to use synchronization approaches to coordinate the accesses for the elements of the output vector. So we support three different synchronization schemes. First, we have a coarse grain approach where we have only one mutex, one global lock to protect all the elements of the output vector. This means that even though the multiple threads might work on different elements of the output vector, each thread needs to acquire this particular lock in order to perform a write to any element of the output vector. Second, we have a fine-grained locking scheme. We have multiple locks for the elements of the output vector. And with this approach, we have a round-robin scheduling. Each element, each lock, each mutex protects a subset of the elements of the output vector with a round-robin way. And with this approach, we have less competition among the threads to the same lock, to the same mutex. If the threads are working on very different parts and very different elements for the output vector, they might not compete for the same lock. And the third synchronization approach is a lock-free approach. In this scheme, the multiple threads create partial results for the elements of the output vector. These partial results are temporarily stored in a scratchpad memory, in a data scratchpad memory. And after we finish the computation, only one single thread goes to the scratchpad memory, merges the partial results, and writes the final result for the output vector in the local DRAM bank of its core. So overall, considering all these 1D partitioning kernels and the 2D partitioning kernels and all the different formats that we have seen, we support 25 SPMV kernels. All of the source code is all of the source code is available on GitHub. We perform load balancing across the PIM cores at a row and block row granularity for the CSR and BCSR, while at non-zero element granularity and block granularity for the Q and BQ formats. And we also have the three synchronization approaches that we use them in the Q and BQ formats. And of course, all of these SPMV kernels are configured to support a wide variety of data types, because this SPMV is also used also in machine learning, where we need like low precision data types. It is also used in HPC. In the HPC context, we need floating point operations. So we also support floats and tuples. And yeah, so next I will briefly describe some main key takeaways of our characterization study. I will take a look at the evaluation. So first, I will briefly describe the AppMem system that we use in our evaluation. You have already seen the main architecture of this system. It has 20 AppMem DIMMs, crossing memory PIM enabled DIMMs that are connected to a host CPU via common channel-based connections. In total, we have 2,560 PIM cores. Each PIM core is located close to a DRAM bank, and each PIM core is a multi-threaded core that supports up to 24 threads. We call them tasklets. And yeah, inside the PIM core, there is like a 14-stage pipeline. There is a small scratchpad memory of 64 kilobytes, the instruction memory of 24 kilobytes, and there is a DMA engine that performs read and write transactions, read and write operations in the local 64 megabyte DRAM bank. In our evaluation, we use 26 sparse matrices with diverse characteristics and access patterns. We group the matrices in two main families. When there is a high deviation, when the standard deviation of the non-zero elements across the row and the columns of the matrix is very low, we use the name regular, so we call the matrix like a regular matrix. When there is the standard deviation of the non-zero elements across the rows and the columns of the matrix is very high, the matrix becomes very irregular. It has a power law distribution, and we call this matrix as scale-free. So first, we will examine the kernel time. We will only take a look at the second step of the end-to-end SPMV execution using one single PIM core. So we'll experiment with multiple threads using one single PIM core, and we will try to see the characteristics of the SPMV with this evaluation, with this characterization. So here we use 16 threads, and we use the Q format, and we compare the two synchronization approaches, the coarse grain and the fine grain synchronization approach, using 16 threads of one single multi-threaded PIM core. We observe that the fine grain logging does not improve the performance over the coarse grain logging. They have more or less the same performance, even though in the coarse grain logging, we have one global log for all the elements of the output vector. In the fine grain approach, we have multiple logs to protect the fine grain logging, to protect the elements of the output vector. And this is because the memory accesses to the local DRAM bank are serialized to the DMA engine that we have in the hardware. Even though multiple threads might work on different elements of the output vector, they might write different elements of the output vector. These writes are serialized in the DMA engine. They are performed as transactions at the DMA engine. So eventually the critical sections are serialized, so we cannot improve the execution parallelism. And this is the first key takeaway of this experimentation. We find that the fine grain logging approaches cannot improve the performance of the coarse grain logging approach when the PIM hardware does not support concurrent accesses to the local DRAM bank, because right now this hardware does not support concurrent writes to the local same DRAM bank from multiple threads. And yeah, that to this end, we recommend that architects of processing memory systems need to provide low-cost synchronization support, and also to support and enable concurrent memory access to the local DRAM bank, or also to integrate multiple DRAM banks, like 2 DRAM banks per PIM core. So in this way, we will increase the execution parallelism whenever 2 threads work on different DRAM banks, different local DRAM banks. Next, we compare the load balancing schemes, various load balancing schemes, basically load balancing the rows or load balancing the non-zero elements across the multiple threads. Again, we use 1 PIM core and 16 threads, tasklets. And we experimented with the CSR and the Q formats, which are the most popular formats. Here we observe that the load balancing of the non-zero elements performs better compared to the load balancing the rows across the multiple threads. And this because load balancing the non-zero elements typically provides a higher computation balance, which means that the threads and the tasklet more or less perform the same number of computations. So we have computation balance in the pipeline of the PIM core, and we achieve better performance. However, we observe that only in one matrix, the load balancing the number of rows across the multiple threads achieves a better performance compared to load balancing the number of non-zero elements across the threads of PIM core. And this is because for this particular matrix, only one single thread, whenever we load balance the number of non-zero elements, only one single thread performs a much larger number of memory accesses for the rows. Only one single thread needs to process a much larger number of rows compared to all the remaining rows. So we have a very high variability of the memory accesses that are performed across the threads of the same PIM core. And this causes some performance overheads. So this is why the row load balancing performs better compared to the non-zero element load balancing. So our main key takeaway is that we need to provide load balance across the multiple threads of the same PIM core, and this load balance needs to be performed in computation, in synchronization, and also in memory accesses in order to achieve high performance. Otherwise, if we have very high operation balance, we have high performance overheads. So we recommend and we suggest the programmers to provide intelligent data partitioning algorithms and load balancing schemes in order to provide high load balance across the PIM cores in terms of computation, synchronization, and also in terms of memory access. And the last part of this analysis includes the scalability plot. So here we increase the number of threads for different sparse matrices and different sparse matrix formats and various matrices. And we find that you have also seen in previous presentations, even though the processing memory core can support up to 24 threads, the scalability improves up to 16 threads. And we cannot provide better performance up to if we increase the number of threads more than 16. And this because of the 14-stage pipeline that we have in the processing memory core. The pipeline is almost full, is fully occupied. We don't have any bubbles and stalls with 16 threads. So yeah, increasing the number of threads more than this number does not improve the performance. Next, we will examine again the execution time for only the kernel time, for only the second step, but this time we will take a look at the kernel using multiple PIM cores. Until now, we have only seen one PIM core and multiple threads. Right now, we will do a characterization and analysis using multiple PIM cores. In this experiment, we compare the four compressed matrix storage formats by normalizing the performance to the CSR format, which is the most popular format. And we find that in the 1D partition kernels, in scale-free matrices, in matrices that have very high power law distribution, the Q and the PQ formats provide a much better performance and significantly outperform the CSR and the BCSR formats respectively. And this is because the Q and the PQ formats can provide better non-zero element balance across the PIM cores compared to the CSR and the BCSR formats. As we have explained, the CSR and the BCSR formats are limited to do the load balancing at a row and block row granularity because we store the matrix in a row and block row granularity. So this limits the partitioning and the load balancing that we can perform across the multiple PIM cores. And similarly, in the 2D equally sized kernels, even though all the compressed matrix storage formats have the same non-zero element balance across the PIM cores, because we have static partitions on the sparse matrix, so in all formats we have the same non-zero element balance, we find that within the PIM core, across the multiple threads of the same PIM core, the load balancing again, it depends on the format that we use. And in the Q and the BQ formats, we find that we have better performance in scale-free matrices compared to the CSR and BCSR formats. And this is because we have a much higher non-zero element balance across the threads of the same processing memory core. And finally, if we compare the 2D equally wide and 2D variable sized tiles, we find that in both the regular and the scale-free matrices across all matrices, the Q and BQ formats provide much better performance compared to the CSR and BCSR formats respectively. And this because they can provide much higher non-zero element balance, both across the PIM cores and also across the threads of the same PIM core. Thus, our main key takeaway from this analysis is that the compressed matrix storage format that we use to store the input matrix determines the data partitioning that we do across the DRAM banks. And this data partitioning across the DRAM banks determines the non-zero element imbalance, the load imbalance that we have across the PIM cores, and it affects the computation imbalance across the PIM cores, and it has the corresponding performance implications. Therefore, in contrast to the common CPU architectures, here we need to select, in typical CPUs architecture, the CSR format is the most popular and provides the better performance. But here we have seen that the Q format provides a better performance compared to the CSR format, because we have seen that the format determines the non-zero element balance and the partitioning that we do across the DRAM banks. So overall, we recommend and we suggest software designers to propose compressed data structures for sparse kernels that can be effectively partitioned across the DRAM banks with the goal of providing high computation balance across the PIM cores. So we basically need to give more importance on the computation balance and less importance on the compression, because we don't care so much about the memory footprint. We care more for the computation balance in this architecture. So next, we will see some studies and some characterization results, taking into consideration the end-to-end SPMV execution, meaning that we also consider the time to load the input vector to the PIM-enabled memory modules, and also the time to retrieve the partial results on the host CPU and merge them on the host CPU cores. So we look at the end-to-end characterization analysis. Here we evaluate the scalability of different partitioning techniques as the number of PIM cores increases, and we normalize the performance to that achieved with 256 PIM cores. First, we find that the scalability of the 1D partitioning technique is limited by the low data transfers for the input vector. In the 1D partitioning technique, the input vector needs to be replicated at each DRAM core. So we replicate the whole input vector at each DRAM bank across all the PIM-enabled memory modules. And as a result, we transfer a very large amount of data from the host CPU to the PIM-enabled memory module. So we are limited by the memory bus bandwidth. And as a result, this has like a low scalability and has very high performance overheads. So the key takeaway is that the 1D partition kernels are bottlenecked by the high data transfers to broadcast the input vector, the input data across all the DRAM banks of all the PIM cores of the system through the narrow off-chip memory bus. And we propose and we suggest hardware designers to give the programmers a very efficient broadcast collective. So we need to enable a broadcast operation in order to effectively do data transfers from the host CPU to the PIM-enabled memory modules for the input data that we need to use in the real-world applications. In the equally sized scheme, we find that the performance and the scalability is limited by the kernel time. Specifically, the kernel time is limited by the PIM core or only a few PIM cores that are assigned to the 2D tile with the largest number of non-zero elements. In this scheme, we have static 2D tiles, static partitions. So the partitioning, the static partition with the largest number of non-zero elements limits the scalability because there is a very high a large number of computations that only one PIM core needs to perform, or only one or only a few PIM cores need to perform, and this affects the scalability and the total execution time. And lastly, for the equally wide and the variable-sized schemes, we find that the scalability is limited by the retrieve time. The retrieve time is associated with the time to transfer partial results from the PIM-enabled memory modules back to the host CPU. And with these two schemes, the 2D equally wide and 2D variable-sized scheme, we find that there is a very high amount of padding that we need to perform in order to gather the results for the output vector, because the data transfers from the PIM-enabled memory modules to the host CPU have to have the same, they need to have the same sizes of the same amount of data across all the PIM cores of the system. So we perform some padding in these operations with empty bytes, and this padding is more or less 80% of the data that we transfer from the host CPU, from the PIM-enabled memory modules to the host CPU. So there is a very high amount of zero padding that significantly limits the scalability. And the key takeaway is that the 2D equally wide and 2D variable-sized partitioning schemes require fine-grained data transfers at DRAM bank granularity. If we have data transfers at DRAM bank granularity, we have zero padding. And if the system supports these fine-grained data transfers, we might achieve a higher performance. And as a result, we suggest hardware system designers to optimize the gather collective. They need to provide the programmer a gather collective that supports variable-sized data transfers, so we can perform data transfers at DRAM bank granularity from PIM-enabled memory to the host CPU in order to effectively retrieve the results, output results on the host CPU part. In these experiments, we have experimented with the best end-to-end performance of various sparse matrices. For example, in the 1D partitioning for the Hugetrich and L-TOR matrices, and the best end-to-end performance, we find that it's achieved using 64 PIM cores or 128 PIM cores. In other words, even though the system supports 2,560 PIM cores, the best end-to-end performance is achieved using a much smaller number of the PIM cores than the available PIM cores of the system. And you also find that the best performance depends on the sparsity pattern of the matrix. In the one matrix, we have seen that we use 64 PIM cores. In the other case, we use 128 PIM cores to achieve the best performance. And similarly, we have also seen a similar characteristic in the 2D partitioning. Here, we find that based on the sparsity pattern of the matrix, we configure the 2D partition to have either 16 or 8 vertical partitions in order to achieve and get the best end-to-end SPMV performance. So we find that in the 2D case, in the 2D partition, the number of vertical partitions that provides the best end-to-end SPMV performance depends on the sparsity matrix, the sparsity pattern of the matrix. And if we change the system, here we have experimented with a second UPMEM-based system, and we find that depending on the architecture, some architectural characteristics, the number of vertical partitions that gives us the best performance varies across different architectures, different PIM systems. So we conclude basically that the best end-to-end SPMV performance depends also on the hardware characteristics, and this gives us the 6 key takeaway of our analysis. We find and we conclude that there is no one-size-fits-all implementation for a parallelization approach for the SPMV kernels. And because the performance of each parallelization scheme depends both on the characteristics of the input matrix, both on the patterns, the memory access, and the sparsity patterns of the matrix, and also it depends on the PIM hardware, the characteristics of the underlying PIM hardware. So as the next step is that software designers need to employ adaptive approaches, adaptive algorithms that based on, they need to tune the configuration and the parallelization scheme based on the particular patterns of each input given and also the characteristics of the PIM hardware. And finally, here we compare all the data partition techniques, and we run different configurations for each different data partition technique. For the 1D kernels, we vary the number of PIM cores from 64 to 2,528 PIM cores. And for each matrix, we select the best performing end-to-end execution throughput. For the 2D partitioning, we use 2,500 PIM cores. And we vary the number of vertical partitions on the matrix from 2 up to 32 partitions. And for each matrix, we select the best performing SPMV execution throughput. So here we find that the equally sized 2D partition technique performs best in regular matrices, while we find that in regular matrices, while we find that the 1D partition technique performs best in scale-free matrices. However, with both the 2D equally wide technique and also the 1D partition technique, we find that the best end-to-end SPMV performance is achieved using a much smaller number of PIM cores than the available PIM cores of the system. There are many idle PIM cores on the system because the best performing SPMV is a trade-off between computation and data transfers. So we find that the expensive data transfers to and from the PIM-enabled memory modules through the narrow memory bus introduce and impose significant performance overheads to the end-to-end SPMV execution, and it's very hard, we cannot exploit all the available PIM cores of the system. To this end, we recommend software, hardware, and system designers to provide high-speed communication channels to transfer data to and from the PIM-enabled memory modules, to provide support to overlap the computation with the data transfers in order to hide the latency, and also to integrate the PIM-enabled memory as the main memory of the system, because with this approach, we will completely eliminate the time to load input data from the host to the PIM-enabled memory modules. Directly, we can just allocate the data to the PIM-enabled memory module. Lastly, I will show some characterization results that we got that we have whenever we compare the SPMV execution on the AppMem system with that of a common CPU system and a common GPU system. In the GPU system, for a fair comparison, we also account for the time to load the input vector from the main memory to the GPU global memory. And after we execute the SPMV kernel, we also account for the time to transfer the final output vector from the GPU global memory back to the host CPU. So common CPU and GPU systems are processor-centric systems, and as you see in this table, their characteristics, they have very high computation capability. They can provide very high peak performance. While the processing memory systems are memory-centric systems, they have low computation capabilities, low peak performance, but they have a very large bandwidth. They can provide a very large memory bandwidth. So when we compare the same workload in these two different types of systems, without accounting for the data transfers, here we only show the kernel time, the actual kernel time. And we find that the SPMV execution on the PIM system achieves a much higher fraction of the available peak performance compared to that of the CPU and the GPU systems. This means that we have much higher resource utilization, computation utilization. We utilize the PIM cores much better, and we have a higher total cost of ownership. So we minimize and decrease the financial and the monetary costs if we use this hardware, because the software fits better with this particular hardware. And if we compare the end-to-end SPMV execution, we find that the CPU achieves the best performance, and this because the CPU is the system that does not have data transfers. We don't need to transfer data from and back to the memory. So this achieves the much higher performance benefits. And regarding the energy, we are able to measure the energy only using the kernel, only in the kernel step whenever we execute the SPMV kernel on the CPU, the GPU, and the PIM system. We find that the highest energy efficiency is achieved using the GPU system. However, we find that the PIM system is much more higher energy efficient over the CPU system. So there is like a very high potential to provide high energy efficiency with the SPMV kernel using the AppMem PIM system. Please refer to our papers for many more results. We have a very extensive characterization analysis in our archive version. In conclusion, the SPMV kernel, the sparse matrix vector multiplication kernel, is a fundamental linear algebra kernel for many applications and many real-world domains. In commodity processor-centric systems like CPUs and GPUs, this particular kernel is bottlenecked by the data transfers and the data movement between the processor and the memory. Real near-bank PIM systems can tackle the data movement problem by placing low-power cores very close to the DRAM banks, very close to where the application data resides. And these PIM systems can provide high levels of parallelism, large aggregate memory bandwidth, thereby they are a very good fit to accelerate the SPMV kernel. To this end, we have designed SparseP, which is the first open source SPMV library for real processing memory architectures, and it's also available on GitHub. And we have also provided a very comprehensive characterization study and analysis of this SPMV kernel on the first real-world processing memory system, the UPMEM system. Our work provides new insights and recommendations for software designers and hardware architects in order to improve multiple aspects of future PIM systems, future PIM software and PIM hardware. For more details on our work, please refer to our full archive paper. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Hi.
Great work on your end-to-end calculation. Regarding with the problem that you mentioned on the output vector being accumulated and zero padding and being done zero on the CPU, would it be possible to cascade the updates of the additions, the reduction of the final output through the PIM code instead of moving them all?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the current system that we use in the UPMEM, there is no support to do internal data transfers from the one DRAM bank to the other DRAM bank. You need to go over the host to do the transfers. But there are like many research papers from the Safari research group that they like provide the hardware to support these data transfers internal within the RAM. And yeah, we expect that if they commercialize soon, we will further reduce this cost, which is like an important cost.
Okay.
Sure.
So you mentioned it seemed like one of the problems you had was transferring data from the host CPU and host memory to the DPUs. And I'm wondering if that could be set up if you had closer connection between the host CPU and the host memory and the DPUs and CPU memory. And so I was thinking about thinking this out earlier, and I thought about having the host CPU and then a DRAM chip and then some smaller DPUs on top that all communicate through the same memory to try to reduce the memory latency and increase the bandwidth. That would help. With
but still you need to go over the memory bus, right?
Yeah, but it would be closer together. It's all sandwiched in the same.
So the memory bandwidth is the same, right? Because the limitation here is like we are bottlenecked by the memory bus bandwidth. So if the memory bus bandwidth is larger, this will mitigate the data transfer cost with the design that we mentioned.
Thank you.
Sure.
Obviously, the efficiency for double precision is talking point there emulations, and is the simulation library open?
Yeah, the floating point operations are emulated. There is no support in this UPMEM system. However, there are other PIM systems that do support floating point operations, not this UPMEM system. Regarding the open source, I don't think that they have open source library for the software emulations they are doing.
There are some other sparse methods,
basically we use the most popular ones. The four most popular ones: CSR, BCSR, BigFoo, and Foo. Yeah, I guess it's worth to give a try in other sparse matrix representations. As I said, the most important is to represent, not to compress the matrix. The most important key takeaway is not to compress enough the matrix. The most important key takeaway is like to do a compression in a non-zero element granularity, because the compression affects the data partitioning across the DRAM banks. So we need to compress it in a non-zero element granularity in order to do a data partitioning in a non-zero element granularity, in order to have computation balance across the PIM cores. That's the most important. So this like the main key takeaway that will direct which format that we need to choose. Yeah, we basically experimented with these formats because they are generic formats. There are like some formats like Dia, which are like for diagonal matrices, and yeah, these are more specialized formats. But yeah, for sure, it's interesting.
So are you doing additioning between the host CPU or are you also done that?
Yeah, that's right. We are doing that in the host CPU. Yeah, the partitioning is done in the host CPU. We keep some metadata on the partitioning. How is the partition across the DRAM banks, and then the API gives us the opportunity to do the data transfers for each partition from the host CPU cores to the local DRAM bank. I think there is also a question on Zoom.
Yeah, there's a question.
Yeah,
Lucas, you have a
said-
question.
Yeah, I've got a question. So you said
We can-
that
we
We
can-
cannot hear you. You're muted.
Ah. Still? Oh, I think I unmuted myself. You can still can't hear me? Oh, okay. The people on Zoom, I guess, maybe something. Okay.
So can you repeat your question now?
Can you now hear me or? Okay.
Yeah.
So my question was, since you said that there are you experimented already on communicating between the different memory banks and like not always going over the host CPU, which would increase the speed, which like the time which is not spent in the kernel. And I believe the stance of UpMem was that they don't want to do this because that would kind of ruin their memory hierarchy, how they developed it. So how far is the research there?
Yeah, I agree that this might affect the internal circuitry in DRAM. But I think that it should be feasible to be done in commercial DIMM systems, and there are like a few research works that propose a multiple tier memory hierarchy within the DIMM.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. It was very nice. Yeah, thanks.